Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Hope everybody's doing pretty good on this so-called Saturday. Got a lesson for the Sabbath. And it should be a good one, man. Just helping us. It should be an edifying and like kind of an exhortation to kind of help us endure what we go through a little easier, right? The title of this lesson is going to be called "The Ugly Side of God's Image." Yes, God's image can be ugly sometimes. We're going to talk about that today. First and foremost, I want to give all glory and honor and praise to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who sent his son as an instrument of salvation for the nation. I also I want to do this real quick because I thought this was kind of interesting. I was going to make a whole video about this, but I'll just mention it here. For, I might make a video on it, I might not, but it's not that big of a deal, but it does show us that our God is the God of both life and death, right? Exit out of this. Make another tab. Go to Google real quick. I don't know if y'all heard about this or not.
Definitely didn't hear about that.
Yeah, man, there was a deacon. So it wasn't a pastor, it was a deacon that was killed and he was protecting killed kids at an Easter egg hunt. And he was killed during a shooting. I don't know if you guys been keeping up with the news lately, but there's been a lot of shootings. I think there was just one at a college. I forgot the name of the college that took place at, but it was the son of a deputy.
Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State. It was the son of a deputy, and he killed I think two people, and there was some people that was injured as well. But yeah, man. So I just want to go over this real quick. Right. We'll go with CBS News. I don't think they have a video out. I'm not sure. Let me see before we solidify this news station. See what this video has to say. Hold on, man. Bear with me. I'm trying to get it to play. I think this is about gun violence. Yeah, I think that's just about gun violence, man. So that's the picture of the guy, the deacon. Yep. And first and foremost, judgment starts with the house of the Lord. So it would be Jake that got shot, right? Let me see. All right, so let's read a little bit about this. Don't want to take up too much time, but let's read about this, right? We can start here. If one of the brothers want to read this for me, we'll start at this first paragraph.
It says a Mississippi church deacon was fatally shot while trying to protect people from a dispute that broke out during an Easter egg hunt hosted by his church, witnesses and law enforcement said.
Right, so dang, it says fatally. That means he died, ain't it?
Yes, sir.
So A deacon died at an Easter egg hunt shooting, right? Hosted by his church. Witnesses and law enforcement said. Now, we're going to keep reading on this. I don't know if this was at the church or at some random field, but what I do know is if they had not been participating in an Easter egg hunt, which is pagan, right? Which is the worship of another god, right? Lives could have been spared. And I'm just going over this first this morning just to, one, because we know this is Easter weekend and we know people celebrated Good Friday and people are doing their Easter egg hunts today and yesterday and probably on Sunday. And I want you guys to know that you got to look into the origin of these things. You got to look into um, what you're actually celebrating, because we all know that bunnies don't lay eggs, right? Bunnies are mammals, right? They don't lay eggs. They're not reptiles. We also do know, what does a bunny and an egg and an egg hunt, right? What does that have to do with being a Christian? Christ never taught about that. You got to ask yourself, where do these ideals and where do these practices and rituals, because the world doesn't see them as rituals, but they see it as holidays, right? Where do these holidays and these customs come from? These practices, right? Even down to your birthday, right? When you think about a birthday, why am I blowing out candles? It seems normal now because we've done it all our life, but when you think about the root of it, what do candles have to do with a birthday? The day I was born. There's no candles in the hospital when I pop out, or there's no candles in, there might be candles in the doula room because they set in the ambiance, but nobody blowing them out, making a wish, right? Wearing crazy hats, right? And who are you making a wish to, right? So that's another example of just look into some of the stuff that you celebrate and why you celebrate it. The answer's out there, right? You wanna ask yourself, why are we doing the Easter hunt? What does that have to do with the Bible? The answer's out there. I'm gonna give you the short answer. It has nothing to do with the Bible, right? But let's keep reading on this. Right, let's read this next paragraph.
It says, Empowerment Ministries Christian Center in Gulfport, Mississippi, identified the deacon as Eddie Shedd and said he died on April 12th while trying to save others from harm at the church's Easter egg hunt at Jack and Florence Golden Park in Gulfport.
So he wasn't even at the church building. So they probably wouldn't have even been there if it wasn't for this Easter egg hunt, right? And I'm bringing this out just to let y'all know that the Most High God doesn't care if you think you're doing something nice. He don't care if you think you're doing something for him, right? It's better to obey than to sacrifice, right? You sacrificing your time to put on a good Easter egg hunt so people can take pictures of their kids getting the eggs and they can get candy and whatever prizes are in the Easter egg hunt and things of that nature. God don't care about none of that, right? God didn't care about when the Israelites was in the wilderness and they made their own golden calf. He didn't care about that. He said, "Amen, shut it down," right? Shut it down or else, right? And I'm led to believe, now I speak as a man, but when things like this happen, there's warnings, right? I'm led to believe God give people chances. You know what I'm saying? I'm led to believe this man may have had a conversation with somebody and probably defended Easter or whatever. I speak as a man. I don't know that to be true, but I'm just saying a lot of times, God makes you eat your words. And it's sad that the brother died. We have the same spirit as God. We wish none would perish. But God, he shows his wrath. And you may think, and in the world, in the world, they thinking, why would God let somebody die doing the Easter egg hunt for the kids? Why would God let a deacon die of a church ministry? And because you're still in sin. The wages of sin is death. You can't get around that. That's not Old Testament. That's not done away with Christ. When Christ came on the scene, it's not once saved, always saved. The wages of sin is death. That's how we know we still got to keep the commandments, because sin is causing people to die every day. That's a fact. That's true. And God do not care about your intentions, right? So it's time for us to wake up. We don't want to end up like the brother at this Easter egg hunt.
What does this read? It says, the Gulfport Police Department said the shooting stemmed from a child custody dispute and that two people who tried to de-escalate the fight were hit by gunfire, as well as the suspect. Shed was pronounced.
Hold up, my bad. I don't know what did happen.
Khan, it says Shed was pronounced dead at the scene, and another person was airlifted to an out-of-state hospital.
Right? Jake, that's Jake for you, fighting over a custody dispute. So you at this park you doing it for the kids, and now somebody like, nah, this my weekend. Nah, this my weekend. Now I'm supposed to be taking them to the Easter egg hunt. No, I don't want them to. It could be somebody they don't want their kid at the Easter egg hunt. We know how it is in the truth, right? And so you got that going down. A brother tried to de-escalate the fight, and we're hit with gunfire, as well as the suspect. So multiple people got hit with the gun, with the bullets, right? Shed was pronounced dead at the scene, and another person was airlifted, right? So a day of joy and gladness to them, right, ended up being a day of horror and something that they will forever remember for the rest of their lives. These kids probably are traumatized by the Easter egg hunt. All praises to the Most High for that. But like I said, it's just a warning, man. We're following traditions of men and doing stuff that we don't know to be sin. And because of that, it leaves us open to opportunities for demonic spirits to come and possess people, to come and attack us from all sides, and even the death angel, as we see here, right? So, man, let this be a warning. But let's get into this lesson, right? Getting into this lesson, man, this lesson is going to be about the image, the ugly side of God's image, because we know we were made in God's image, right? But there's things that come with being made in God's image. And once we understand the things that come with being made in God's image, we won't take life as serious, or hardships in life as serious, or what's a good word? What's that word they use in Wisdom of Solomon 5? Derision. We won't take derision as serious when we get dealt with a certain way, right? So we're going to start off right here in Genesis, where it talks about it, very first book of the Bible, chapter of the Bible. Genesis 1 and verse 26. My brother can read this.
It says, and God said, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth.
Right? So, with that being said, he said, let us make man in our image. Right? I want to go, let me see. Yeah, verse 27.
Verse 27, it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them.
Right? So male and female, he created he them. Right? Not trying to get into the logistics of everything and the deep dark layers of this, but male and female. So women, y'all are not off the table when it comes to some of these things as well. I don't know, my train of thought for words today is just out the window. I can't figure out what I want to say. But women, you guys don't get away either, right? You're gonna fall to some of these same situations, some of these same ugly things in life as men will, because we are both made in God's image, right? Next one I want to go to is in John 15 and 18, right? We're going to go to John 15 and 18. Let's dive into some of the things that being made in God's image will encounter. Because the thing about being made in God's image, everybody always touches on the good things. We're made in God's image, bro. We're supposed to love each other. You know, you're so great. You're so talented, and God has a plan for you, and God wouldn't make anything in his image that he didn't. You know, we hear about all those things, and you know, those things are true. Being made in God's image is a great thing. I wouldn't want to be made in any other God's image, right? But there are some ugly things that come with being made in God's image, right? Let's read John 15 and 18.
This is the book of John, chapter 15 and verse 18. It says, if the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you.
right? So this is Christ, the Son of God, the Son of the Father, telling the disciples and the people around him that, hey, look, I'm hated, and I'm the Son of God, and I'm hated, right? He's saying, so if y'all get hated, don't take it personally, right? Just know that it comes with the territory, right? And he understands this wisdom because he knows that the world hates the Father. The world don't really love the Father. That's why we're doing Easter egg hunts, right? The world don't really love the Father. That's why we celebrate Halloween and things of that nature. The world don't really love the Father. That's why you can go up to a group of people. You can go up. You can spend all day asking people, give me 5 books of the Bible, and they can't name you one. They making stuff up in their head, right? But they take time to learn, people's draft percentages and in the NFL draft, the NBA draft. They take time to learn about Roth IRAs and how to sell life insurance. They take time to learn, dissect, and study and believe in other things in life. And that's how we know that the world does not love God or the Father. They hate him. And what is hate? Hate is just the opposite of love. And we know love is keeping the commandments. So if somebody hates you, just know that they're going to be sinning against you. That's what hate is. When they sin against you, when we say the Father's prayer, we say, forgive us of our debt or forgive us of our trespasses as we forgive those that debt or trespass against us, right? Meaning there's people that trespass or sin against us. They commit sin against us, right? And that's what hate is. So knowing being made in God's image, knowing this, we are going to be sinned against, just like everybody sins against God and his commandments, right? Let's go to some examples, right? Some examples of this, right? Just a refresher. We know this. We go over this all the time. If you've been in the truth for a while, this is like ABCs, right? The 10 Commandments is like ABCs. I want to just touch on a few. Let's go to the 5th commandment, right? The 5th commandment. The 5th commandment, right? Verse 12.
This is Exodus 20.
Exodus 20, verse 12.
Verse 12. It says, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee.
Right. So example, right? I have down here Samson, right? When we look at Samson didn't obey his parents. He didn't honor his parents and their opinions on what he should do. And ultimately it led to his death. Right? His parents say, hey, man, stop going over to the Canaanites to get you women of the Canaanites, bro. Stop dealing with the other nations like that. And he didn't care. And ultimately, his lust was his downfall. If he would have honored his mother and his father, right? Guess what? He would have had a longer life. So that was sinning against his mother and father. Now look at you, 2025. Now you a mom. Now you a dad, or you want to be. You need to know that and expect that at some point in time, you're not special. Your kids are going to sin against you. You got to understand that. I mean, we pray that it don't happen, but we are not off limits. Samson was a great savior for the nation. He still sinned against his parents. And when we think about the nation, we sinned against our parents, right? We sinned against our father. You know what I'm saying? And whenever he chastised us, we still did not get right. So don't think that a belt whooping or a punishment or a timeout is going to just fix the problem all the time. But understand that you know better than God. If the world will not honor, like the brother went over last night, not honoring their fathers, but liking or glorying in the ways of the heathen, right? Like I said, I can't think of my words, but y'all get what I'm saying, right? They prefer the legacy and the culture of the heathen over the honor of their father, not setting by the honor of their fathers. So we've done this to our father. So you're no better, right? We are no better. So when it comes as a mom, as a father, just don't take it as disrespect. Just know that you know better, and know that you've done it too in your past. I'm pretty sure all of us could think of some stories where we did some stuff that our parents probably would have thought was not honorable, right? Let's get the next. Oh, and then another example would be David, right? Not saying David didn't honor Jesse, but David's kids didn't honor David. Shoot, one of his kids, right, Absalom, tried to take his kingdom from him and slept with his wives. Is that honorable? That is not honorable. And David, he understood, look, you know, who am I? I'm not even God, right? I forgive my son. He still forgave his son. His son still had to die for that by the hands of Joab, you know what I'm saying? Because the wages of sin is death. But you gotta, you know, like David, you gotta be ready to forgive. And ultimately, the ugly side of God's image is letting us know that we have to be able to forgive whenever somebody sins against us, because we're not even God, and people sin against God all the time. And God has mercy on who he wants to have mercy on. And he shows compassion on who he shows compassion on. So we got to be able to do that for our people too, because it was commanded for us to love our brothers and our sisters and forgive us of our debts as we forgive those that debt or trespass against us, right? Another example would be right here, right? We know this is murder, right? Verse 13, read that.
Thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not murder, right? When we think about some examples in the Bible, let's talk about Stephen, right? Or Stephen or Stephen, right? He was killed and stoned, right? Unjustly, if you ask me, right? As we all would say. But nonetheless, he took it cheerfully. He was willing to die. And he understood that, look, bro, I'm not nobody special. They try to kill the belief in the Father. They try to murder the Christians. They try to murder great prophets and things of that nature. Who am I? We look at another example, Christ. They murdered Christ. The Romans said the blood's not on my hands, but we'll carry it out because, you know, we don't really care about y'all anyway. And then their own people. So the one thing that Christ and Stephen had in common was their own people murdered them. So in this truth, even we just went over at the beginning of this lesson. I'm pretty sure there was a Jake that ended up killing Jake, right? You can't take it when you see something horrible in the news. You can't say, why me? Why this? Why? It happened to Christ. It's not fair. They're lying. It happened to Christ. We are no better. We're made in God's image. They gonna want to lie on us. They want to kill us. You know how many people wish hate on the God of Israel, right? You know how many people want the God of Israel to be defeated? You know how many people, you know, this stuff is going to happen, man. It's going to happen. Let's go to the next one, verse 14.
Verse 14, thou shalt not commit adultery.
Right? The nation of Israel has committed adultery and fornication on the Most High God of Israel. The nation of Israel has. So if we could do that as a nation to God, and God can be betrayed, God could get cheated on, don't be surprised. I'm not saying to expect it, right? But I'm saying don't be surprised if it happens to you. Don't think that, how could this happen to me? I keep all the commandments. How could my wife, how could my husband do this? How could they step out? Hey, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, and know that you are no better than God by all means. You're nothing compared to God, and God still got cheated on. God still got fornicated on. You just gotta take it with life. You're made in God's image. The things that God goes through, guess what? We go through right here on this earth, and he lets us go through it so we can understand him better. We can understand those emotions that he has towards us and the laws and commandments that he makes towards us, right? Go ahead.
Another aspect of it, man, can be just understanding and knowing that when judgment arrives, there can be casualties, so to speak, right? What do I mean by that? Like, somebody might have committed adultery against you, but it may not have been for your judgment. You might have just been a casualty, right? Just the same way as God or the Most High is a casualty to a lot of our sins, right? We think that we're getting back at so-and-so. we think that we're transgressing against so and so, we did so and so wrong, not knowing that simultaneously, right, we're doing the Most High wrong at the same time, right? And he becomes a casualty, and that's why when Christ says, "Hey, look, I was poor and you didn't give me food to eat," right? And people are like, when were you poor? When did I run into you? Right? It's because that we made Christ and we made the Most High a casualty whenever we sin. Right. So a lot of times when bad things happen to us, and you might say, like the brother said, like, I've been keeping these commandments, right? Why is this happening to me? Sometimes you're just a casualty, right? But just like we're in the image of God, right? We're gonna be casualties for some things, right? When our kids go off, when bad things are not necessarily happening to us, but they affect us because of the people that we are involved with or know. Just like the Easter egg hunt, right? You know what I'm saying? Some people in that thing could have been casualties, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, man, it goes back to being the image of God, because God has made a casualty every single time we sin, right? We think it's a flesh and blood battle here on earth, but every time we sin, we cursing the Most High, right? He's the casualty. Christ is a casualty now because he was the sacrifice for our sin, right? So now we make his crucifixion an open shame, and he becomes a casualty. But the thing that happens is when people sin, that's the last thing we have in our mind, because we all want to convince ourselves that we love Christ and we love the Most High. But when we sin and we get mad and we do stuff to people and stuff like that, the last thing that we have in our mind is that we're doing it to Christ, that we're doing it to the Most High, right? So understand that judgment can also be a casualty, but you gotta eat that too, and you gotta be able to be ready to forgive as well.
Right. And for example, on the road to Damascus, he said, "Paul, why persecutest thou me? Saul, why persecutest thou me?" Saul probably thought he was doing the right thing. He thought he was probably doing the right thing in the name of the Most High God, right? But you could be doing something you think is right, and you done, cause Christ to be a casualty, and you persecuting Christ, right? Because of your actions, meaning you're leading people astray, and you're preventing the furthering of the gospel, right? You can go out and preach whatever gospel you think you believe in, but if it's not of the Bible, you committing some casualties, and you causing God and his Father to be casualties. And not only them, the Christians that are the followers of God that are seeking to you for advice and edification, you causing them casualties, right? Go ahead.
And I just want to add, man, that's a scary sight, man. Because when you finally meet your maker and you face to face and he's telling you everything that you've done on this earth, and he starts bringing out stuff like, "Oh, remember when you did this to me? Remember when you did it?" And you looking like, "What in the world? No, I didn't do that to you. I did it to that disrespectful N-word up the street." And he's saying, "You remember when you did this? You remember when you rolled up that window on me? This, that, and the third?" And it starts to hit home, right? It started to hit home on the whole principle that he told you to love everybody like he loved the church, right? And to love each other as you love yourself, right? And so it gets scary because you think you did an okay job until you meet your maker, and then he tells you that all the offenses that you did to him, because again, he's a casualty.
Right, man. Imagine this, right? Imagine you're excited to go. For example, you might be at Disney World or Universal, and somebody cuts you in line. You might be at a restaurant, somebody cuts you in line, right? And they got the last breadstick or the last cinnamon roll or whatever, right? And you was eyeing it the whole time, and you was ready to go. Or you on a sports team and it's your turn to go in, and you know it, but somebody went and jumped in front of you, and now they got in, and you didn't get to get in for the rest of the game. Or you say you're an evangelist, right? I know us three as evangelists, we can't wait for it to be our turn to teach, right? And if somebody righteous jealousy happens when somebody else teaches on our turn, maybe, right? All those brothers that's out there, you were supposed to go for 15 minutes, but this brother's going a little over, and it's going to cause your time to decrease and things of that nature. Think about how you feel in those instances. And I'm saying that because when Christ said, or when God said, vengeance is not yours, it's mine, but you went ahead and, took that vengeance, he feeling that same way. He feeling like you took his cinnamon roll. He feeling like, bro, that was supposed to be my job. You took my job into your own hands, right? So just like that, we can't in this world, and that happens all the time. In this world, that happens to us all the time too. That's another example of when we sin against the Father, we also sin against each other, and we can't take it to heart because God Almighty has taken it to the chin over and over and over again. Over and over and over and over again, man. You know what I'm saying? Let's read this, verse 16.
Verse 16 says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor."
Right? So, like I said earlier, women, y'all aren't excused, right? Moms, y'all ain't excused. When we look at the book of Susanna, right? She had two people bearing false witness against her. She stood firm on the Lord, you know what I'm saying? But a lot of us, we get the woe is me spirit and nobody ever believes me. And I just sound like the crazy B word. And I just X, Y, and Z. And I got to prove myself because no, stay shamefaced, sister. Understand that you are nobody important. Understand that it's happened before you. Understand that they bear false witness on Christ. Understand they bear false witness on God. When Satan brought Christ up to the mountains, like, hey, look, I give you everything. That's bearing false witness on God, because God the one to give you everything. They've done it to greater people than you, more important people than you, your creator. Bear false witness on people. So when it happens to you, just remember the ugly side of God's image, man. I'm living it. And don't be bitter. Don't move a different way. You know what I'm saying? Just keep going through life. I'm not saying to expect people to sin against you, but I'm saying don't be surprised when it happens, right? Let's get the last example in the 10 Commandments, right? Let's read verse 17.
Wait, before you read that, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Point, because y'all was saying earlier, just about the ugly side of God's image, and I thought about a scenario that happened yesterday, like how we're talking about, how we think we may be pleasing God, but realistically we're deceiving ourselves, right? It's a form of self-righteousness. So yesterday, man, I was driving down Russell Parkway and I seen a brother walking. So I stopped and I didn't stop the brother at first. I went to go get the brother some food because in my mind he looked like he was hungry. You know what I'm saying? He looked like he could use a meal, and I was like, man, I could, fulfill my alms. But when I got the food and then I refound the brother and I pulled up on him and I said, hey man, here, did you want this extra Chick-fil-A? I bought this. And I said, I seen you, so I just wanted to give you some food. He was like, man, nah, I'm not hungry. You know what I'm saying? And saying that to say, sometimes we may think we're doing the right thing, but we don't inquire of the Lord to really find out if what we're doing is right. And I'm not saying the brother was the Lord, but I'm saying sometimes we assume that, oh, this is what's going to please somebody. This is what's going to help somebody. This is how we are going to satisfy somebody because it's our own form of self-righteousness, right? We feel like this is what I want to do to please them, so I'm going to do it, right? But if I would have rather went and asked the brother instead of assuming that he was hungry, and I went and asked him, hey, what do you need from me? What can I do for you? How can I please and serve you? I would have got an answer that was more sufficient, and I could have been able to truly help him in the way he was needed to be helped, other than assuming that he needed help in this way when really he may have needed help in other aspects, right? So just a sidebar to just show how, like, sometimes we got to stop assuming, like the brothers were saying, we got to stop assuming that because we do these acts, Lord, Lord, I did this in your name, I did that in your name. We got to stop assuming that those are the things that the Lord is pleased with, when at the end of the day, he's not, because why? We didn't inquire of him.
It's better to obey than to sacrifice. A lot of times, man, we sacrifice and then, like the brother Isaiah got understanding. So he didn't feel disrespected when that transpired, right? He practical, he understand. He got some wisdom about himself. But the average person might be like, ungrateful, bro. You might go off. But knowing this, that it's better to obey than to give the sacrifice of fools. And what we see nowadays with all these different religions and all these different customs and holidays and stuff, you see a lot of people buying Chick-fil-A, and God, like, I ain't hungry for that. right? Whole time, God needed a ride to the crib. You offering him food, he need transportation, right? But also to the brother point too, we got to pray before we do everything, right? And a lot of times we take God out of it when we don't pray before we do it, and we just do it like the brother said, of our own vanity, of our own tuition, and not God's tuition, and then we end up wasting time, money, effort, all of that, right? You know how long it must have took them to build that golden calf in the wilderness, that molten calf. I know you asked Aaron, it just kind of popped out like that, but they had to mold that thing and wait for it to cool and everything, man, to worship it. And when they was worshiping it, that was a lot of time, energy, right? And it was a lot of money. That was a lot of gold, right? And it was all for nothing. So think about all the times that we do that to God, right? And understand when people do it to you. So this would be a good lesson for the brother that you stopped on the side of the road. He shouldn't be He shouldn't feel disrespected either, because that's how God felt. God feel as though that people are doing or going above and beyond, and it's not what you asked of them. It's not even what you wanted of them, right? We see that all the time in relationships, right? With spouses or boyfriend, girlfriends, or whatever. Like you see that all the time with husband and wives, or you see it all the time with kids or your children, right? You really want them to do one thing, but they spend all their time doing something else, and they want you to be appreciative of it, but you really not appreciative because you still want something else to happen, right? And we do that to God all the time. So, hey, look, but if you're a victim of that and you think somebody spit on your face after all your hard work and effort and time, just understand we do that to God all the time. Just take it to the chin and keep moving on, right? Verse 17 is the last example I want to pull out of this.
Verse, we already read it, I believe.
No, we were about to, and then Isaiah pulled out his.
Oh, yeah. Slucky. It says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's."
Right. So some examples in the Bible from this, King Saul. King Saul said, David, they're saying that David killed tens of thousands. I only killed 1,000. He coveted David, even though he gave David everything, even though he had more than David, even though he was the king. He was David's king, but he still coveted. So a lot of y'all gonna feel like I respect this man. I respect this woman. I love this person. I'd never do nothing to hurt this person. I would defend this person behind their back. I always talk good about this person. Why do they covet me? Why do they envy me? And you thinking, man, that shouldn't be like that. Why are they worried about me hurting them or me being superior to them when I think the world of this person? Understand, we do that to God all the time. We do that to each other all the time as a nation, right? We do that all the time. We covet. We covet other people's religions. Man, that seems so cool. I want to be able to put that on and, celebrate Ramadan and say I celebrated Ramadan. I want to be able to go to that mega church and take Instagram videos and show people I'm worshiping. We covet other people's lives and other religions and things of that nature. And we spit on God when we do that. Right. So when people covet against you, you know what I'm saying? Hey, take it to the chin. It's the ugly side of God's image, right? I want to go here next. 2 Chronicles 36 and 16. 2 Chronicles 36 and 16.
Another thing, too, I'll add is that as a people, we got to definitely be more comfortable with understanding the ugly side of God's image, because when you live in a world that teaches only the beautiful aspects of the Lord, right, you forget to realize that as well as the Lord is terrible, he's also great. And this is what I mean. I'm speaking in reverse like the Bible does when they speak of the Lord sometimes, how the Lord is considered great and marvelous when he does destructive things. Because at the end of the day, people really don't want to understand the truth that there's always two sides to the Lord. You can receive the grace and mercy, but you can also can receive the sickness and death, like the brother pointed out earlier, how sometimes we just casualties, but again, when we're doing things that aren't pleasing to the Lord, you give room for spirits to come in, even the death angel, right? So people have to be mindful that it's okay to not have it all the way right, because when you go through the word and you read and you find out, dang, I'm not supposed to be doing that, now you can put yourself in situations that may not have you ending up like, the deacon that passed, because at the end of the day, the Lord's judgment is swift and it's likened unto a ring.
Man, that makes me think of this, man. We got some time, man. I only got like 2 or 3 more precepts, so I'm gonna pull this YouTube video really quick, because what you just said kind of made me think about the YouTube video that I watched earlier today. And the way he worded this was like on the money. It was on the money in regards to people doing things in ignorance. And, you have to be the bigger person, or you have to be a humble person to accept the truth. Let me see here. Shout out to your boys right here, the hopeful elect. It says 2 watching, but we know spiritually, what I'm saying, that 2 could be whatever. Nonetheless, let me see here. It was from Truth Unedited. And it was at the beginning of the video too, so I don't know if you got to find a marker. Truth Unedited. But I liked his wordplay, man, and it kind of goes into this. Right, it's this one. And an important message every Christian needs to hear. Right. Fair use, by the way. Fair use, fair use. I don't think the brother would report us, but in case YouTube be doing the reporting and AI, fair use.
Look at these people. Do you know what one of the hardest things to do is? Admit that you've been doing something wrong all of your life. It's easy to acknowledge the things that everyone else can clearly see as being wrong with you. A person being an adulterer or abusive or thief, it's easy to look at those actions you've been doing and recognize your error. But when you have tried to be a better person and not live like the drunkards or the thieves and the murderers, you've been going to church all your life and you feel that you're a good person.
Right. It kind of boils down to that. You feel like you're a good person because you put the effort in to put the bottle down. You put the effort in to put the weed down, to stop sleeping with random people. You put the effort in, so you think you're a good person.
One of the hardest things to recognize and admit is that you have been worshiping God all wrong. Admitting that it's possible that you are an apostate is probably one of the hardest things that any of us have had to do. It requires a level of humility that most people are not willing to have. It requires the person to sacrifice their ego and admit that there are things they had wrong. It requires...
He said most people don't have that level of humility. It says the meek will inherit the earth, right? That's what the Bible says. He said you got to come as a little child, right? And those are the people that are going to get the kingdom. That's why only few is going to make it, because the majority of the world is set in ego and pride and can't be humble. If they feel like they're a good person, then nobody can tell them that they're not, even if you show them the facts, right? Imagine going to court and you feel like you didn't do wrong, but the judge is telling you in what offenses you offended the law. You still don't believe it was wrong, right? The judge don't care if you feel that way. They still gonna convict you, right?
Person to truly put the Most High above their own self and their own thoughts. And sadly, so many people are not willing to do this.
Right? A lot of people quote it, not my way, not his ways are bigger than my ways. Not my will, but thy will be done, right? But the majority of people cannot put the Most High God over their own thoughts and their own feelings. And that's why a lot of us, we feel some type of way when we see the ugly side of God's image appear in our life. That's why when some of us feel some type of way when we see certain acts committed on the earth and we wonder, why did God allow that to happen? It's because we don't know him for real. When God says, depart from me, I never knew you, those are going to be to the people that thought they were good people, that thought they sacrificed their life for God. They thought they were worshiping God. That's why it was written that, hey, look, you got to figure this thing out with fear and trembling. It's not once saved, always saved, right? But that's all I paid. It was about a minute of that. So, if you want to go watch that video, it's a important message the Christian church needs to hear. I think he uploaded it yesterday. But anyway, let's read this real quick. 2 Chronicles 36 and 16.
It's the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 36 and verse 16. And it says, but they mocked the messengers of God and despised his words and misused his prophets until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people till there was no remedy.
Right? So look. This is a perfect correlation. If they mock God, don't you think they're going to misuse the prophets? They're going to mock the prophets too. You're going to get the same treatment that God did, because why? You're made in his image. So that ugly side, you're going to get that ugly side too. You know what I'm saying? And look, even in the physical, there's some days where you wake up, you have a haircut, you know what I'm saying? Your skin glowing, you feel beautiful. But there's some days where you just feel like putting on a hat, there's some days you feel ugly. It's an ugly side to you, and it's a beautiful side to you, and you the same person. You're gonna catch both. That's life. That's life. You're gonna get acne every now and then, right? You're gonna get some razor bumps. You know what I'm saying? You might get a cold sore. You might, ingrown hair, right? You might, get a scar on your face from an accident at work. You never know. But you got to keep going through life. That don't mean, quit and give up on life and think, woe is me and life's so unfair. Nah, it's life, right? But they mock the messengers of God, despise his words. So they're going to despise your words. That's why I say they misuse the prophets, because what does a prophet do? They prophesy. They use their words, right, to tell you what God is going to do on the earth. So they're going to despise the prophet's words. It's going to happen to you if they did it to God. If they did it to God and the prophets, don't be mad when people mock you. I'm trying to tell my mom that she got to stop celebrating Easter, and she is just wicked. Come on, bro. Be patient, long suffering. How did God treat Israel? God sent a savior to Israel every time. Come on now. You gotta have that same passion towards your people, even when they mock you and despise your words. You get misused. Guess what? The prophets was misused. You still got to keep going. You still got to do what you're supposed to do, right? We get misused all the time when we go out there, right? People come over to us, start disrespecting us, start talking about crack cocaine, start talking about all different type of madness. They misuse us, right? That don't mean that we say, Lord, what's going on? You keep sending these scoffers. Man, they gonna scoff. We're not too important. We're not the big man on campus to where, we take disrespect, and if they disrespect us, we don't respect. No, because guess what? We've had some people that mock and scoff us come back. They was having a bad day and we was able to give them a word, and we could have turned them away. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta take the ugly side of God just like you take the beautiful side of God, right? It comes with the territory. Let's go to Matthew 15 and 8. To whom much is given, much is required, man. So it's the same thing about when people, come against you. Matthew 15 and 8.
The book of Matthew 15 and verse number 8, it says, this people draweth nigh unto me with their mouth and honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me.
So if they'll do that to God, if they'll do that to Christ, best believe you're going to have people to be fake in your life. They're going to be fake. They're going to be fake towards you. They're going to honor you and praise you and comment and like and subscribe, and they're going to dap you up. They're going to give you a hug. They're going to do you favors, right? But their heart is far from you. It's going to happen in life. Don't feel some type of way because you feel like you done found some snakes in the grass. You don't feel like you found some haters. You feel like you done found it's gonna happen. We are sheep's in a pasture surrounded by wolves, right? Yeah, it's gonna happen. You're gonna end up trusting the wrong person sometimes. You're gonna end up, getting scammed. You're gonna end up getting sinned against. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna happen. Why? Because they did the same to Christ and his Father. We see it to this day that people honor God with their mouth. I love God, man. Jesus is the way, man. But I'm still working on me, bro. I'm still working on me, and He understand that, bro. Like He understand, like you know what I'm saying. I got a lot of stuff I'm still struggling with. Their mind or their heart is not on God. They honoring Him with their lips. They saying He the one true God and He's the way, but they not acting like it. So they gonna do that to you, right? They're gonna say, "Hey, bro, you so smart, bro. Hey, man, life is looking up, man. I just love your family, man. But their heart is really far from you. They really preying on your downfall. They really get excited every time something happens bad in your life. They really always they can't wait to tell somebody when you messed up or when you did something evil, or they heart is far from you. And when you find that stuff out, man, you just gotta keep it pushing, keep it moving, right? The world would say to cut them people off, but man, treat everybody how you want to be treated. That's what Christ say. You know what I'm saying? And you gotta just stop expecting so much from everybody, because at the end of the day, we all operate from spirits, and if you're operating in sin, it's going to cause you to sin because you're leaving yourself open and susceptible to be influenced by sinful spirits, right? You may not be operating sinfully, but that doesn't stop the people around you from operating in sin, right? Or being attacked sinfully, right? We see Judas gave into his greed and his lust and betrayed Christ, right? Christ still kissed him on the cheek, broke bread with him. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna happen. You got to just take accountability for you and how you handle every situation that you're in, right? Let's go to Psalms 109 and 2. This is the last precept I got. Psalms 109 and 2.
And I want to add too, I always tell my wife, man, sometimes you got to stop expecting you and other people. And I mean that to say, like the brother just said, you got to have a little bit more patience when dealing with, everyone else that's not yourself. Because why? Sometimes you push this truth, you teach this truth, you want people to follow, the same. You want people to have the same type of wisdom and understanding that you have in relation to the scriptures, and they just don't. And it may take them a lot longer time to get it than you did. And sometimes when you expect too much from people, sometimes it begins to wear you out, tire you out. Now you don't feel like long suffering no more. Now you don't feel like having that conversation. Now you don't feel like spreading that gospel because you feel like it's all for naught. Why? Because you feel like they're not hearkening to you when you want them to hearken unto you. And it's not that. You got to remember that, again, like the brother just brought out in Second Chronicles, if they mock the messengers of God, right? If they misuse the prophets, how much more yourself? If men hated Christ, how much more you? You got to stop expecting you and everybody else. Just because you would do something in a certain situation, just because you would hear the scripture and it would make sense to you, doesn't mean it's the same way for everybody. So
Right, man.
Keep food for thought.
That's a mighty saying right there. Stop expecting you, right? That might be the phrase of the year. Stop expecting you and everybody else, man. Because when you do that, you start treating people differently. Because you wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't do that. This person did this to me. I've already tried to be the bigger person, X, Y, and Z. I stop expecting them to be you. They're not you. They struggling with their own demons. They struggling with their own faults and their own sins that they commit. They got temptations and different trials in their life that you may not have in your life. You got to stop judging people by what you would do, because that's going to affect how you move through life. And then consequently, it's going to cause you to be a bad brother or a bad sister because you feel or you expect something from somebody. You don't expect nothing from your husband. You don't expect nothing from your wife. You don't expect nothing from your girlfriends, your boyfriends, right? You don't expect nothing from nobody. You just do you. You just do you. If you feel led to give something, who cares if they say thank you or not? If you feel led to give a compliment, who cares if they say thank you or not? If you feel led to, I don't know, do whatever, who cares how they act? Stop expecting stuff from other people. Because you're going all 9 out of 10, you're gonna get the ugly side of God when you expect from other people. You're gonna get the ugly side of, you're gonna know what the ugly side of God's image is, right? So stop expecting it, right? But so that was a mighty point, man. Stop expecting you and other people, man. That you can make a whole lesson off of that. But Psalms 109 and 2.
Psalms 109 and 2, it says, "For the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are opened against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue."
You're gonna have people lie on you, man. You're gonna have people, you're gonna have the wicked deceive you and deceive others to deceive others about you. It's gonna happen. Stop having so much hate in your heart for when it happens and towards the people. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Stop having hate in your heart towards these people. It's spirits that are, it's a part of your life journey. And you have to experience these things to understand the emotions that God has, right? So you have a better relationship with God, and so that you better yourself and that you're tried in the fire, right? It's going to happen. The ugly side of God's image is going to happen whether you like it or not, right? Stop taking it to heart. Stop taking it personal. That's one thing I've been saying lately to a lot of people. Stop taking it personal. It's not personal, bro. It's not personal, sis. It's not personal. You can't stop certain things from happening. They're gonna happen. People are gonna be people, right? And they're gonna treat you just like they treated God. That sounds good until you start looking into the Bible. Oh, I want to be treated like how they treat God. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because people is not. The kingdom is made for few, right? The majority of people do not treat God well. And once you understand that, you will understand and stop taking it to heart when people don't treat you well, because you are like this when it comes to God. You're like this. You're nothing. So stop expecting people to give you the utmost when you don't even deserve it. Let's be honest, right? But that's all I have. The brothers got any precepts they want to go before we close out?
Yeah, I got one. We bring it out plenty of times, but just want to go back to it. The Sirach 11, and I think it's just go to Sirach 11 and scroll. I want to say it's 2021. No, or is it maybe 14? We can just keep it wide, and when I see it, I'll know the. Right there, 14. Yeah, 14. Right. So this is Sirach 11 and 14, and it says, "Prosperity and adversity, life and death, poverty and riches come of the Lord." So I want to close on that, just to add to the lesson that the brother brought forth, because again, people always preach, prosperity. People always preach life. People always preach riches as it pertains to the Lord. But what people don't preach is the adversity that you'll have to go through when it comes to serving the Lord. People don't preach the death that could follow from sinning against the Lord. People don't preach the poverty that you may be stricken with for any reason that the Lord may put it on you. You know what I'm saying? So, like it says in Sirach, when it says, "My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in the time of trouble." People truly have to understand that, like the brother said earlier, you got to come as a little child when you're receiving the knowledge, because you can be doing everything. You could think that you're doing everything right for God. You could have this sense of self-righteousness because you go to church, because you don't drink no more, because you don't smoke no more, because you don't cuss, because you listen to nothing but straight gospel music. You can think that you're pleasing the Lord. But again, just like the encounter that I had, I just feel like if you inquire of the Lord, you won't have to question if I did right or wrong. You won't be like these people that say, "Well, Lord, I did this in your name and I did that in your name." You just got to inquire of the Lord. But you got to remember, in situations like the deacon got slaughtered, he killed, that comes of the Lord. His death may not have been strictly solely for him. I mean, it could have been, but it also could be used as collateral damage to teach people that this is not the way to serve the Lord, right? This has nothing to do with resurrection. This has nothing to do, you know what I'm saying, with the true Passover, right? So just food for thought. Keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, I say mighty lesson.
Oh man, life and death. You know, it don't matter if you get a title of a deacon, elder, bishop, pastor. It don't matter who you are, right? If you're in sin, it does not disqualify you from death, right? And because you're going through adversity doesn't mean that one day you won't be prosperous. And because you're rich doesn't mean that one day you won't be impoverished, right? They all come of God. They all come of the Lord. And once we read this, this is how we're supposed to, the way I read this is how you're supposed to go through life. Prosperity, adversity, life and death, poverty and riches come of the Lord, right? It's not supposed to be a surprise to you when any of these things happen to your life. When you get super rich, it's not supposed to be a surprise. When you be super poor, you shouldn't be woe is me. When death happens, you shouldn't be like, why, God? You're supposed to treat everything the same, right? Knowing that your life is in God's hands, right? Somebody, precept, you have anything, Donal? With that though, you know, we say hopefully you guys have a good rest of the Shabbat, man. We're gonna be out there at Cherry Street. Like we always say, if you're not gathering, you're scattering, and we are commanded to gather in these last days. So with that, we say shalom.
Shalom.